Welcome to the 11 Warriors show for February 1st, 2024. Jason Priestas, he's Chris Lauderback. Chris, is it just going to rain forever? We're going to get through this? Just nothing but rain, man. Get you down these months.
Hey, you're Mr. Optimistic. I'm counting on you to not be so beat up by that stuff. I guess I got two things for you. It could be snow.
Right.
So let's have rain, right?
That's fair.
And two, I mean, it's basically February 1st. So the first full month of winter is in the book. So, I know we're happy January's over. I think Chris Holtmann's probably super happy January's over.
Nobody happier.
There's some positives there, right? Yeah, rain is bad, snow's worse.
Okay, that's fair. That's way to pick me up, man. I appreciate that. I needed that this morning. A lot of stuff to get into this week, man. OSU made the transfer guys available for the first time to the media on Tuesday, I believe. Caleb Downs, Quinshon, Judkins, Will Howard, center Seth, McLaughlin, the guys that have transferred in spoke to the media for the first time and got some really good stuff, man. Caleb Downs, obviously a guy everyone wants to talk to. He's a preseason All-American according to ESPN. We'll play the adjuster spot at OSU, free safety basically. And some things he said, Saban's retirement caught him by surprise. And I think that was the case for everyone in Alabama. Nick, thinking about it a little more, Nick kind of did him dirty. And I know he could do it. It's his prerogative. You wake up one morning, you're like, today's the day I can't do this anymore. You're fine, do that. But in a perfect world, he gives them like a 30-day heads up or something so they could like stem the flow of talent leaving town.
Yeah, it's nuts to me. I mean, considering what he's built there, he wants it to continue to succeed. I think that's probably why some of those initial reports of, or not necessarily reports, but, his wife's sick or this, that, and the other was real, was interesting at first because it happened so quick. Because, you would think, and maybe there was, but at least some backdoor dealings or the AD knew it was coming or whatever. But yeah, it seems like it snuck up on a lot of people. I don't know the best way to go about doing it, I guess, but that's a little surprising considering what, how long he's been there and what he's built.
Yeah, for sure. Said when Downs entered the portal or, announced he was transferring, he received 102 phone calls in about 7 hours. And these are not just like, hey, if you want the extended warranty for your car. These are coaches from other schools. So he said he fielded 80 of them, man. He talked to these guys, wanted to be, show some respect for the people that are interested in his talents. And I think that's a stand-up move. I mean, it'd be real tempting. I know at his age, I probably would only answer like 3 of them, honestly. I'd have been like, who are the 3 best schools that are calling? So appreciate his maturity right there right off the bat. But also said it was recruiting on steroids. I can only imagine what that day was like.
Yeah, well, it's a proven commodity at that point, right? You think about these 5 stars that everybody wants. That's one thing, right? You're going to make those calls, but this is a dude that you already know exactly what you're getting. There's zero question mark. This is a can't miss prospect. So, yeah, not surprised the line was long. You think about those 102 calls. I mean, I'm sure it's not 100 schools, right? That's like Day and like 5 other people on the staff calling him. That's Kirby and 5 other people on his staff calling him. So probably a smaller group of schools that realistically, or maybe somewhat realistically, thought they had a shot at him. But yeah, props to him for fielding those. I don't know how many calls you answer in a day, but I screen pretty much everything unless it's, you, my wife, like there's probably like 4 or 5 people. That's
you better be in my phone book, right?
And even then it's 50-50.
That's a good point.
Text me, man.
Yeah, some people out there hurt right now watching this and like, man, I called him 3 days ago and he didn't pick up. So
luckily I'm not that popular, but yeah, it's going to take a lot for me to pick it up.
Here's what he had to say about why he chose Ohio State.
I just love the program here. I love Coach Walton and love what the people had to say around here. I believe in Coach Day. And I believe in this team.
Thought that was really interesting, what he had to say. Obviously, some nice things about Coach Day and, believing in the team. But Coach Walton and his dad are supposedly really tight, man. They go back a little bit.
Yeah, that gives you probably some inherent trust also, right? Like you want to go to a place that, it's got a winning tradition, all of this, but knowing that, Walton's been tearing it up on the recruiting trail, obviously, transfer portal as well, but never hurts to have that family connection, something go way back with, with your dad. You're obviously going to trust your dad's opinion on that. And it sounds like those guys are more than just, kind of passing acquaintances. So yeah, definitely did not hurt the cause.
No, not at all. And, he was asked also what he expects about, the 2024 defense. A lot of people are pointing to this unit and looking at everyone coming back on that unit and saying, man, this has got a chance to be an all-timer defense for Ohio State, like truly a silver bullet unit. And here's what he had to say about that.
I expect us to be one of the best. I expect us to excel and be better than they were last year. I expect us to be elite.
He hit us with one of the best. One of the best, measured confidence. I can respect that.
Yeah.
Some guys will hit you with the best. They'll just come around and say, I expect us to be the best. And one of the best, elite, words that Ohio State fans want to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's going to be interesting, too. You hit on it that, or you talked about it in the quote, moving to the adjuster position. He was mostly a strong safety at Bama, so being a free safety here in Columbus should be interesting. Allows Lathan Ransom to stay in his more natural position, obviously. But, yeah, he's looking around. He's seeing those pieces. Like, it wasn't just, I trust Coach Walton. My dad's buddies with him. He wants to go somewhere and, play for a championship, play for a great defense. So I think he does expect Ohio State to be one of the best. It's January. You don't have to throw on a bunch of superlatives right now, but he knows looking around that this Ohio State defense has a chance to build off of last year, and that, he feels like maybe, I don't know if it's missing piece, I don't know if it's cherry on top, whatever you want to call it, but you're adding a difference maker at what, in Knowles' defense is probably the most important position on the field.
Yeah. And no need to pile the superlatives on because the fans will take care of that, right? He knows that. There's a guy in Ohio right now that thinks this defense could shut down the New York Giants. I promise you, there's at least one human being in Ohio right now that believes the 2024 Buckeye defense could stop the New York Giants. And that's fine, man. That's what fans should do. That's what fandom's all about. Quinshon Judkins, the running back from Ole Miss, rushed for 1,000 or more and 15 or more touchdowns in 2 straight seasons. Ask why he chose Ohio State, and here's what he had to say.
Well, my answer would be, why not Ohio State? A place with great culture, the best coaches, the best players, the best fan base that's very passionate about their team and about the whole city as all. So that was my reasoning.
I love that. Love that quote, asking why Ohio State, and he hits you back with, my answer is, why not Ohio State, man? Talking about the fan base, the passion of the fans, the city, and looks like he's going to be a fan favorite quickly here.
Yeah, no doubt. We talked about Caleb. I mean, that's more of like a lateral move for him, right? From Ole Miss to Ohio State. For Judkins is a little bit different animal, right? It is a step up, so that why not Ohio State makes even more sense, right? I mean, great offense, probably fun to play, and in Kiffin's offense and that type of thing. But when you talk about really having a chance to, get to a playoff to potentially win a national title, it makes sense with, hey, why not Ohio State, talking about the culture and the coaches and all those kinds of things. But I think even more is that, Travion's welcoming him, and Judkins, he had 271 carries last year. He had almost as many as freshman year, right? I mean, it's got well over 500 carries. That's a lot of mileage, right? When you can't turn pro yet. So I still think there's just, a ton of allure of, hey, yeah, this whole thing of, man, going and sharing a room with another great running back, that's smart after you've got 2 years already in the bag of film and just taking a pounding. Now you can split and you can be fresh and you can showcase your skills a little bit more. They're going to line him up in different spots. He's not just a running back between the tackles. I think all those things are attractive to him and should be attractive to Travion Henderson too, right? Because the guy's had a hard time staying healthy, had 156 carries in 10 games, I think it was last year. So this is going to be a win for both of them. And, I wouldn't expect Judkins to say a ton of that in this type of setting, but I don't think there's any doubt that being able to be in tandem at this point in his career with what he's already proven is a really smart move.
Yeah, and we finally get to have a player answer the age-old question, how many times greater is the game than the Egg Bowl? And, what's the order of magnitude there? And I think it's about 20. I'm gonna go there.
That sounds about right.
Because he's going to experience it, get a guy that stepped from the Egg Bowl. Now, the Egg Bowl did give us the funniest, at least the top 5 funniest moment in college sports history.
The fake urination on the
when the dude squatted and popped a leg up like a dog in the end zone. Gosh, I still, man, that's
legendary.
Yeah, I have a son. He's 12. I showed him that last year. I was like, you want to see one of the funniest things that ever happened in college football? He's like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, you got a penalty and cost the game too. That's the best part. I respect it, but you can't lose the game. If you're going to do that, you got to make sure you get the W because it's going to backfire on you. Will Howard, the quarterback from Kansas State, also spoke with the media. Said he chose Ohio State to develop for the NFL. Makes a lot of sense. Spoke really highly of Bill O'Brien, who came here. Was hired after Howard had announced his transfer decision. So that was kind of like a bonus for him, right? He's already coming here, gets to play under Ryan Day, Brian Hartline, some of these receivers, the talent in the room. Oh, wow, Bill O'Brien's coming now to kind of develop you even more as a quarterback. Dude hit the lottery, and he was asked about the wide receiver talent, he has at Ohio State to kind of illustrate how much of a lottery he hit. And this is what he said about freshman wide receiver Jeremiah Smith, who was on campus, was the number 1 prospect in the country. And here's what he had to say about him.
just all across the room. I mean, we got dudes like Carnell and Brandon Ennis and obviously Emeka and all those guys. Like, I mean, that's just tip of the iceberg. Like, there is so much talent in that room, and being able to throw to guys like that makes my job a lot easier.
First impression, Jeremiah Smith.
Dude, he's a dude, man. I haven't gotten to talk to him that much yet. Just because we've been in different groups lifting and stuff. But man, he's a specimen. I mean, that dude is a freak show when it comes to physical. I mean, he is. I'm excited to see him out on the field in live action. It'll be fun.
I think if you call someone a dude, that means it's a pretty good thing, right? Calling a dude on the football field. We always say on the show, this team doesn't have enough dudes, or this team's got more dudes than the other team, and just flat out called him a dude, man, and can't say it enough. How exciting is life for Will Howard right now?
Yeah, it's nuts. He's surrounded with talent. He sounds so grateful. He sounds like that dude that's outkicked the coverage so far. He's like, how'd I end up with this chick? Like one of those deals. Like, you just got to looking around and all. But yeah, you hear him talking about Jeremiah Smith, and that's always a good thing to hear any year. But this year, Ohio State's going to be expecting him to do something, right? Like Carnell Tate heard a lot last year, but you knew, like, okay, with the depth and everything else, and just the reality as a freshman, it's hard. I don't care who you are, what school you are, it's hard to play. It's rare that you're a star in year one. But even Dan Hope's initial depth chart projection, he's got Jeremiah as a starter, and if he's not, he's going to be that fourth guy at worst, right? Like he's going to play a bunch. So hearing kind of those early returns are important, not just because it sounds cool that you got the number one recruit, but to some degree, Ohio State's going to be counting on Jeremiah Smith this fall. So to hear, those positive things early matters, because it's not just superlatives for a year now or 2 years from now when you really need that guy. They're going to need him this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can check out Dan's Hope's projected depth chart on 11warriors.com. It was published yesterday, some good names in there. And Dan always puts in work on those, always a fun read. Center Seth McLaughlin, the other Alabama transfer to Ohio State. Just a good dude, man. Real down to earth. I think fans are really going to like the guy. He's a fifth-year senior, so this will be his 1 year here. And, press, the media asked him about the snap problems he had in the Rose Bowl against Michigan. Here's what he had to say about that.
When you go through something like that, you kind of have to sit down and look at yourself and be like, okay, who am I as a person? What am I? And I kind of just sat down and thought about, where can I go from here? I can't control what happened in the past. I can't control what happened in that game. I can't control, the public reaction to that. But I'm here now. I'm in a great place to continue my development and play for an incredible program, play for incredible coaches. So really, I'm very positive. I have no negative feelings about what happened. It is what it is type of thing. So it's exciting to move forward.
I thought that was a really mature response to probably a really disappointing day in his life.
Yeah, it's a fifth year guy, right? He's been around, and that's what you got to own it, right? You make a mistake in your life, right? You can run from it, or you can acknowledge it and try to learn from it and get better. I do think it was interesting that he feels like it's just a fluke thing. He feels like it wasn't in his head and that kind of stuff. So you just have to hope it's not a Chuck Knobloch situation as you move forward, because it seems clearly like Ohio State's counting on him to be the center next year. But yeah, I appreciated the maturity as well. It's the first thing I thought of when I heard it. Howard, the other guys too. I mean, you think the people out there naysaying about Ohio State building this roster, and a lot of these transfers that are coming in, they're it's like, oh, you mercenaries, just buying guys, this, that, and the other. On the other end of that coin, you've always heard Day, who's kind of adopted maybe a slightly different approach of like, hey, I've got to be a little bit more cutthroat because there's a lot on the line this year. What it seems like clearly he hasn't thrown away while going out into the portal aggressively is finding those guys that still fit, right? That still you think can be a part of a brotherhood, to use their term, but just be a culture fit. The way all these guys talk. I mean, Downs just finished his true freshman year, and you touched on just the maturity that he spoke with. Judkins is happy as hell to be here. Howard's on another planet with how happy he is to be here. And then you got McLaughlin as this steady veteran that's acknowledging some failures that he had after having some success, and even had success last year, right? Just kind of finished with a thud. I appreciate, as much as these guys have talent, that it does feel like you're bringing guys into the room that will fit. like in baseball, I've seen in past year, as the Yankees, they'll go and sign all these guys, and it's, do they even fit with everybody else on this team in this clubhouse kind of thing? But you're just buying dudes because you can. I feel like the way Ohio State's gone about this has been pretty smart, and I'll be surprised if they don't not just excel on the field, but also just enhance what that locker room mentality is.
That's a great point. There's more to this than talent, and it's such a big deal to Ryan Day.
It matters. It matters. Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. Strong point. Other football news from the WAC. Dudes of the Week is a new award they're giving out. We just spoke about the importance of the word dudes.
We said dudes a bunch today.
Yeah, this is the Dude Show. There are Dudes of the Week, and the first one went out the other day. The team, of course, hard at work on winter workouts, mat drills, all those fun things, waking up really early to drag your ass to the Woody and, put in the work in the weight room and conditioning and whatever else is taking place. And the first winners of the award, defensive tackle Ty Hamilton. We've spoken about him before. He's a guy they think highly of and should have a really good year, the center of the defense next year. And running back T.C. Caffey. And I'm going to be honest, man, I didn't know who T.C. Caffey was. Did you?
Yeah, we've seen him carry the ball once or twice before, but yeah, obviously one of those guys that that's not gonna be counted on to do much. But maybe that speaks to that culture too, right? Of making sure you've got those guys out of that Xavier Johnson mold, maybe, that are just gonna work and be an example that people can follow, whether they ever see the field or not.
So you're telling me he has live carries in a regular season?
I'm almost positive that Caffey has carried the ball. I don't know about
that,
last year, but I believe that he has. Yeah, he's been around for a minute.
Well, here, I'm going to hit you with this, though. I guess he could have played fall, too. Yeah. Walked onto the team in June of 2022. So I guess he's got 2 seasons with the program. Definitely a walk-on. Hubbard, Ohio guy up there near Youngstown. Any Youngstown listeners or viewers, hit us up. Want to go to one of those weddings? You heard these cookie tables?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
I need to get a cookie table experience once in my life. Never done one, never been to one of those. So I will bring a gift. I'll dress up and just invite me to a wedding up there if you can. But yeah, Hubbard, Ohio guy. He was D3 All-Ohio, right? Senior in high school, 219 rushing yards a game, 8 yards a carry. Just got to walk on at OSU. That's how hard it is to play football for Ohio State, to start for Ohio State, to get a scholarship for Ohio State. I mean, this dude's probably a really, really good football player.
Mm-hmm. He's one of those guys, too, I think, that just brings those intangibles to the table, that kind of thing. Again, the type of person you want on your team. You're not doing him a huge favor letting him on the team. He's someone that can add to it without, like I said, necessarily producing on the field. Ty Hamilton's an interesting one because from my point of view, I felt like maybe this year he would accomplish, or this past year he would have accomplished a little bit more than he did. Hall wasn't always healthy, and thought maybe he'd accomplish more than he did too, quite honestly. But could this be a year that Hamilton pulls a Devon Hamilton, right, and really kind of springboards up draft boards and whatnot? That's obviously a big reason why he's back, and you've heard the coaches kind of talk about him behind the scenes for a while, wanting it to really translate more consistently on the field. He's obviously going to get the snaps this fall, so excited to see, like I say, if maybe he can't be like Devon and really bust out in his last go round.
Yeah, make some money like his brother. Another fun thing from this week going around on social media, CJ Stroud has not won the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year award quite yet, the official one. I think there's some outlets that hand out their own, but he hasn't won the official one yet. That'll be announced soon. But I'm going to go on a limb and think he's going to win that award. I think
that's timing. It's happening.
I'm not a gambling man, but if I could bet on that, I would put a lot of money on that. And you look up, man, Stroud will be the 6th different Ohio State product to win an offensive or defensive Rookie of the Year award from the NFL since 2016. That's astounding, man. But Joey Bosa won it in 16 with the Chargers. Marshawn Lattimore with the Saints the next year. Took a year off, then Nick Bosa wins it with the Niners in 2019. Chase Young for the Commanders in 2020. Garrett Wilson for the Jets in 2022. And then again, CJ should win it this year. And I mean, on that alone, like, I don't know that we've ever seen a run from that from another college program. Like, to have talent just go out there and immediately have success at the next level and just repeat it year after year after year. Unreal.
Right. Yeah. It's nuts. I can't imagine. Yeah. I haven't researched it either, but I can't imagine that's been duplicated. That's just an amazing run. And you know, what's also really awesome about that is it's not like these dudes just busted on the scene for 1 year and kind of folded up shop. Chase has, had some struggles, obviously, but you think about Joey and Marshawn and Nick and Garrett, and those guys are a little bit, Garrett and CJ are going to be a little bit younger. They've got to make it happen, but there's no reason to think Stroud's not going to keep going. Right. And Wilson too, if he can get a legit quarterback. So yeah, these are guys that not only are just exploding on the scene, but have staying power from everything that we've seen so far.
Yeah, you're right. Aaron Rodgers is healthy next year, and watch out for what Wilson can do up there. Also, there's a guy named Marv Harrison Jr. coming out into the league this year, so may see the 7th in 9 years, which will be just absolutely bonkers. But would you bet against Marv winning the Offensive Rookie of the Year award?
No, not right now. We got to see where he goes and what kind of quarterback he has. But yeah, I mean, talent wise, obviously not.
Yeah, he goes to Carolina. There's bad things happening there. May hex him, but almost any other team, he's going to ball out. Speaking of things hard to believe, reported this week that Jim Harbaugh will make $16 million a year from the Chargers. Again, these are they're guesses at best. Maybe somebody has some inside information. You can't they're not public records like they are at Ohio State or Michigan, where you can just go say, "Give me the salary, give me the contract. I want to see what the guy makes." So a lot of it's speculative, but $16 million a year, almost double what he was getting at Michigan. I don't know, man. If you can get $16 million, take it.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, what Michigan was offering him, they thought 11 and a half, right? So, I mean, imagine being that much far north of 11.5. So, yeah, I mean, good for him. I'm glad they did it. I'm glad they offered it.
If you're a Michigan fan, you might be mad if they match 16. You're like, oh my goodness, that's a lot of money for an academic institution or whatnot.
Makes it a little harder for that fan base to hate on Manuel as much because you're not going to pay him $16 million at Michigan. I mean, Saban wasn't making that, right?
That's a great point, man. That's kind of like a little rescue blanket for Emmanuel. What's to stop Harbaugh from giving $2 million to Michigan's NIL program right now?
I mean, considering how he's rated the cupboard that's there, it's hard for me to think he would leave $2 million behind unless it was kind of a consolation for, taking a lot of the staff, man. Which I'm sure you'll run through.
But my point is he could technically and legally do this.
Oh, yeah.
NCAA could not, because he's no longer a staffer there. He could cut a $2 million check to whatever their collective is right now if he wanted to. And actually, let's see if he doesn't. We'll call him out for not being a Michigan man for not doing it as we go on with the rest of the shows.
Well, there was a deal not too long ago about Stroud giving some money to an NIL, and you see more former players start to do that type of thing. I mean, there's a hell of a lot more players making a lot of money in the NFL at schools like Ohio State and Michigan than there are, coaches or GMs or that kind of thing that have the money to give. So, yeah, Harbaugh could be a bit of an outlier there for that reason. But I think it'd be more interesting to see if some of these former players, does that start to be something where they can be, more significant donors.
Right. And the big thing with the Stroud thing, too, is that he gave to the foundation. And the big thing to me is a lot of guys that didn't benefit from NIL while they were in school, talking about some of the older players like Cam Hayward, a guy like that. Not to say he was asked, but guys like that, they're saying, well, I felt kind of exploited when I was there. The school made a bunch of money, the athletic department. Stroud's like this first batch of guys that actually was compensated. So I think we might see some of this more of this
forward
as we go forward. Yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't really thought about that. I guess I get it either way, but I mean, it's not like Ohio State was choosing not to do something. I mean, they would have gotten in trouble if they did, kind of thing. So there is that for the old heads, I guess. But yeah, it is interesting to say. Obviously, if you're benefiting from something yourself, it might be easier to pour back into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sharon Moore was named the successor to Harbaugh. 5 years, $5.5 million per. Spoke last week. He's offensive play caller, great at that, man. Really good at that. A lot more to being a head coach and being an OC. We'll see how he does, especially when you got, DC Jesse Minter out the door to LA with Harbaugh, strength and conditioning coach Ben Herbert out the door. You're right, man. He's kind of taking all the really important pieces from the program, but I think that Michigan fans are happy with Moore, and why wouldn't you be based on what he's done as an OC? And just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I think he earned it for sure. I do. It's interesting though that so many of the key guys. I mean, I think Minter and Herbert, obviously, everyone would say those were, besides Moore, the most important folks in the Michigan, on the Michigan staff. And I know one of the reasons, obviously, Moore got the gig was continuity. But now that you have so much of that other continuity is gone, it does make me wonder if maybe if a national search might have made a little bit more sense before you landed on Moore. And maybe that's some back channel stuff where they did do, some poking around nationally. I don't know, but it does, I don't know, it makes it a little bit more interesting to me, because now you're asking Sherrone Moore not to step into a situation, but now it's like you've got to rebuild a lot of stuff as well as your first gig versus Day, kind of the whole board on third base stuff. Like there was a lot of that continuity that was in place because Urban didn't take, it wasn't like he took anything with him kind of thing.
Yeah, he went to the NFL and I guess a little bit after, but didn't poach from Ohio State when he could have.
Yeah, even then, yeah, exactly, yeah, fair. But yeah, the Pantonis, the Murat, no matter what anybody thinks about those guys, those were entrenched folks that you don't have to go now and try to find and make sure that that's not a misfire in your initial run at hiring, at hiring guys.
Absolutely. Jeff Hafley, news broke, I guess it was Wednesday night, that he's leaving Boston College to be the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. He was 22 and 26 over 4 seasons there. I mean, people say he made bowls 3 out of 4 years, but you go look at it like 7 and 6, 6 and 6. Like I guess that's a bowl, textbook bowl, but not a good bowl when you're 6 and 6 probably. But a little bit of a warm seat though. And Pete Demel from ESPN had a quote from a source close to Hafley. It said, quote, "He wants to go coach football again in a league that's all about football. Coaching college has become fundraising, NIL, and recruiting your own team and transfers. There's no time to coach football anymore." And man, have we not talked about that topic a ton. It's just easier to be an NFL coach right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like, you've been bringing it up since we were doing the radio show for a couple of years now, basically. But I mean, I don't know, man. It's crazy. I can definitely see that side of the coin. I also think, he's a good example for this or litmus test or not a good litmus test for it, because his seat was definitely warm, right? So moving on, I think makes some sense. He's had a lot more success as a coordinator than he has as a head coach. So I totally get it there. But yeah, when you think about what these guys have to do, and to do all that at a Boston college where no matter how well you do it, you still are not going to compete with Ohio State or Alabama. You're just not. Certainly not consistently. You might get lightning in a bottle somehow, but you're not going to be able to consistently do it. So dumping all that effort into recruiting your existing roster and all of that when, hey, your best hope is to, maybe finish third in the ACC or something. I get it. I get why I would move on. It's tough even at Ohio State to sign up to do all those things that a day has to do. And, any of those guys you consider in the upper tier of the collegiate football, it's a lot to take on.
Yeah. I mean, the one benefit that college has right now is a little more stability, a little more job safety. Certainly like a guy with like Ryan Day that has a family, his kid, plays football for the sales. He's got kids in schools. I mean, that's a perk because, if you're Jim Harbaugh or Ryan Day or Nick Saban or Kirby Smart, you're gonna be able to stay there for a long time. You go to the NFL, you might get fired in 2.5 years.
Yeah.
It's a lot of turnover.
Could be less than that. Turnover. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. And then you're moving to another city, your kids are in another school district. And
that's a great point.
Yeah. Wives and kids tend not to like that. But other coaching news, Luke Fickell made some news in a way, not the best kind, when he announced the hiring of Alex Grinch, our old friend Alex Grinch, at safeties coach at Wisconsin. Grinch was fired from USC in November after giving up, I want to say it was like 2,000 points over a 3-game span, but I'm probably off a little bit there. Dude, he was just, it was like a running joke, and it was like, you could make jokes. Sometimes you make jokes and they backfire. The other thing happens in the game that you were calling for not to happen. But you could reliably make an Alex Grinch joke for like 3 or 4 straight years on Saturdays. And it didn't come true. You're like,
evergreen tweet. Yeah.
It was amazing. Like you could just you knew they were going to suck. And somehow he kept falling up and getting better jobs and better jobs. Or, not better jobs to say, like OSU to Oklahoma to USC. Good jobs. Good job to good job to good job. He was here in 2018, co-DC and safeties coach. I don't know, man. I guess he's not running the D is the only nice thing I can say about that hire. He's just coaching safeties. And some guys are, some coordinators are really good coordinators, but not good head coaches. Maybe that works all the way down the chain where some guys are really good position coaches, but not good coordinators, right?
Yeah, it's anywhere. It's college football. It's life in general, right? The whole Peter principle of you get promoted to your point of incompetence kind of thing. And he could be a really good safeties coach just because he wasn't a good D coordinator. It's fun to clown on it, right? And be like, oh my God, can't believe you hired that guy kind of thing. But he
Grove
might,
City's finest, man.
prove to be very, very good as a safeties coach. But it definitely feels like water has finally found its level with Alex Grinch. It's amazing surprising it took, the 5 or 6 years or whatever it did, but it feels like we've arrived. Yeah.
Of making great money and having great responsibility. What's funny too is like whenever they do anything crazy, like you just fire off a Grinch tweet or someone makes a Grinch joke if something bad happens to their defense, and we'll enjoy that. Last bit of coaching news from this past week: Iowa finally replaced Brian Ferentz. Of course, that was the coach's Kirk Ferentz, the coach's son, was the OC, and he famously had these deliverables he had to meet and could not meet him, so the athletic director had to fire him, which is wild. No, what even the AD was the university president had to fire him. Yeah, it's even better. They hired Tim Lester, who spent 2017 to 22 as head coach of Western Michigan. Got canned there, and then went on and spent last season, I guess, as an analyst with the Green Bay Packers. But played quarterback for Western Michigan, threw for about a little over 11,000 yards. When he left school in 1999, or after the end of the 1999 season, he was number 4 all time in NCAA Division I passing yardage. I don't know how great he's going to be. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm qualified to evaluate Tim Lester as a coach, but like he's got to be better than Brian Ferentz, right?
Yeah. I mean, law of averages says he's going to be better. I know Twitter was aflame with, you mentioned he was with Green Bay last year. The year before that is last year at Western Michigan. Their total offense was like 127th out of 131 teams or something, but they were actually really good. Yeah. The 4 years preceding or whatever it was, they were upper echelon in total offense. But yeah, of course, Ferentz gets a guy who's last year in college was 127th or something out of 131 teams. It's a hard sell. It's a hard sell. It's like, I want you to come here. We're gonna at the beginning of the year when they don't. I guess it doesn't happen as much as it used to. But when the coaches would have the draft and they get all the freshmen in and say, I want that guy for defense. I want that guy for offense. Or I want they all go to defense there first of all. Then you got to talk someone into living in Iowa City and just I don't know, tough sell. But we'll be eager to watch what happens. Because if you're an Iowa fan, you got to be happy. It's anyone basically at this point. Yeah, anyone besides someone without the Ferentz bloodlines was probably their number one criteria. Yeah. Speaking of people being unhappy for a bit, Ohio State hoops, man. Like we get on, we talk about them once a week, and they get worse. They get worse. We clown on them for a good 5 minutes, and we're like, all right, let's see what they do. And they just somehow are like, wow, they're getting worse. You look at what they've done, man. They just no defense. No defense. They refuse to play defense. Lost to Illinois. They're going to finish January with a 2-6 record. Holtmann 26-30 in January at OSU right now. His January struggles have been talked about by everyone, but we're going to keep talking about them until they're not a thing, right? You keep doing it. You got to expect fans and media and people like us to get on YouTube and talk about this stuff. It's tough to talk about. It's tough to watch. You see the player introductions and there's barely, 9,000 people in their seats and it's just sleepy. It just looks like, the tropics or whatever with Will Ferrell, you can hear people catcalling and whatnot because there's not a big enough crowd. And yeah, it's brutal, man. It's awful. The Illinois game, they shot 50% from the floor. They only turned it over 6 times. And they still lose by 12, and they're never really in the game because they just flat out refuse to play defense. They just refuse to play defense. It's unbelievable. And just basic stuff, not communicating with each other. It's not like Illinois is running, the triangle at them or something they've never seen. They just refuse to talk on defense. They just refuse to help. They think they're switching, but they're not switching and just giving up wide open looks. But yeah, you think about just their adjusted defense. Ken Palm, our own Josh Paloa, went and did some research. And yeah, they're 123rd right now in adjusted defense efficiency. Last year, they were 106th. The year before that, 111th. The year before that, 82nd. So the last 4 years or 3.5 years, just a total stink fest on defense. The first 3 years, actually serviceable. But it's just a continued evolution of one of many facets you could point to where it's just eroded over time. But yeah, just the defensive struggles truly are amazing to watch. Yeah, in defense in any sport is one of those things you can do well without supreme talent. Usually, right? Is that fair to say? Well, you heard Holtmann. You probably didn't because you're like, I don't want to listen to this guy talk. But, it was the same thing of like we're saying dude a bunch. Listen to one of his pressers and hear him say force. It's like, we didn't play with enough force. We didn't play with enough force, constantly. Yeah. Says, I don't even know what that means. But to your point, I think defense, you need skill, but it's also about will. And I'm just not sure how much will I see from these dudes at that end of the court. And it's not a new thing. What I don't understand is Vegas is so smart. But if you're you're fading Holtmann right now, you are making money. Illinois is only favored by 3 points in that game. I'm like, how is that even remotely possible? I know people that are fading him so bad that they're doubling whatever Vegas is setting as the spread right now just to increase their odds because the payout will be that much better. Because, I mean, Illinois -6 was free money too.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering at what point Vegas is going to catch up with what's going on in Columbus.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You look at like what this team 14, is that right? 14-game road losing streak for this club?
Yeah, they're closing in on 400 days without a road win.
That's incredible. You look at their next 5, man. They got Iowa next, right? Iowa's Ken Pom 48, Indiana's, a little maybe a beatable team, Ken Pom 88.
Who they already lost to, albeit on the road.
But yeah, they get Indiana at home, in front of 8,000. That'll be a hyped environment. Maryland, Ken Pom 52. At Wisconsin, Ken Pom 11. Their last 2 games, Wisconsin and Purdue, they're going to get cooked, man. There's no way they're winning either of those. What are they? 13-8 right now. 3-7 in Big Ten play. Remember, like a month and a half ago, we're like, "Is this team underrated? Should they be ranked?" They're just others receiving votes right now. This is a team that's 3-7 in Big Ten play.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, we talked last week about maybe this being the first thing that Ross Bjork has to do, the first hire he gets to make, and Holtmann seems to get that too because he said some things in post game recently that's like he knows he's probably coaching for his job right now.
I mean, he has to be. I mean, the only reason it's even a discussion of maybe it wouldn't be is because of the ridiculous extension that he got. So you've got $14 million on the hook for a buyout. Because if you're looking at production, they're well on their way to not making the tournament for a second year in a row. They've never advanced past the round of 32. I mean, I don't know what people want the expectation to be around here. I know it's not Final Four, which annoys me, and that's a different conversation. But good Lord, you gotta luck into the second weekend every once in a while, and not even being able to do that, not even being competitive right now. And it's just the same song and dance. Like, whether it's we didn't play with enough force or we got a young team in year 7, nobody's trying to hear that shit anymore.
Yeah.
Like, this is your roster. This is your program. This is your defense. Done with it. Win some games, or you got to move on.
Yeah, we have the 600 rule. We've talked about it a few times on the show. If the team falls under 600, we're not going to talk about them. We're just not going to cover them on the show. We're not going to talk about them. They're 619 right now. If they lose at Iowa, which let's be real, there's a pretty good chance they're going to lose at Iowa. They'll be 591.
Yeah,
and that means
they're going to be underdogs
next week. Yeah, there'll be no college basketball. There'll be at least no Ohio State basketball discussion next week. So.
And look, he's a nice guy. I take no joy.
Great guy.
Yeah, I take no joy in him potentially getting fired, but I'm also like, that's not really criteria for the job. Certainly not the most important criteria. And this has just gone on too long. It either needs a 180, some miracle has to happen, or Ohio State just has to make a change. I mean, it's not realistic to keep expecting fans to put up with what they're seeing and having 9 or 10,000 people, maybe show up to your games. This is Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad. Like, it's a football town. We all know that. Everyone knows football is king here. But there's still a lot of diehard basketball fans in this town. I feel terrible for those people.
That's because there's basketball history here, too. Ohio State has been good. I mean, they have been good at a lot of different pockets under a handful of different coaches here. Like, this is not some also-ran program. It's not Duke. It's not Kentucky. I understand that. But this level of success or production or whatever you want to call it now, that's below Ohio State standard, even for the casual fan. I mean, it just is, especially in year 7. It's not acceptable.
Yeah, I saw someone the other day created fireholtman.com. I mean, gets to that point in Columbus, that's a pretty bad spot because most people, again, it's a football first town. If it gets to the point where people are creating firecoachname.com.
Yeah, it sucks, but it's come on. I mean, yeah, we something's got to change.
Hope so, because next season, the Big Ten's announced a 15-team basketball tournament format again starting next season. The example bracket's wild, man. It's basically a regional, man. You got like an NCAA regional. Double buys for the top 4 seeds, which is that's huge, man. You make a top 4. Again, there'll be 18 teams in the conference when you have USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington show up. Top 4 get double buys, big time. Single buys for seeds 5, 6, and 7. And then you also have 9 versus 8 on that second night. Then first night would be 12 versus 13, 10 versus 15, 11 versus 14. I love this. Some people are like, why didn't they just do it? Invite everyone. I'll have all 18 teams, or why not go to 16, or why do this, or why do that? I love it because 3 teams now we get to clown every year. Like, you can't make your conference basketball tournament. Like, it's one thing not to make the NCAA tournament, but like for 30 years, everyone's made the Big Ten basketball tournament. Like, imagine like if Ohio State does not make the Big Ten basketball tournament next year. Like, there's going to be some clowning coming our way, man. And you know what? We'll pitch in on it.
Yeah.
Rightly so. Like, you can't make a conference basketball tournament. Like, those are the things, like, 80% of your conference gets invited to it. And you didn't make the cut.
Yeah, that would be tough to swallow.
Yeah. So, anything else you like about the new format, the new bracket?
I'm kind of indifferent to it. I think, honestly, as much as, I like college basketball way more than you, but the conference tournaments, to me, wake me up on Saturday, right? Unless it's my team playing. A lot of these games are kind of duds, and especially if they end up expanding the NCAA tournament again or anything like that. Like, conference tournament's fine, like I said, on the weekend. But other than that, some of this fluff that occurs on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever, they're just less meaningful than even some of these regular season games that understand who might win the regular season title or that kind of thing. So I'm with you. I kind of like the 15, so we can roast a few teams, but I'm mostly interested in, hey, let's get to the weekend and see who's really playing for seeding in the tournament that matters.
Yeah, for sure. All it took for me was one time on a Thursday around noon, Evan Turner hitting like a full court or a half court shot to knock Michigan out.
Yeah. Well, that was our team, right? That's Ohio State.
I'm going to watch these forever. Yeah. For sure.
But that's like Tennessee and Arkansas. You're not going to care quite as much, right? You're probably only caught it because it was on SportsCenter.
That's right. Last bit today. We're going to talk about the women, man, because the women are rolling, man. Men struggling, women rolling. Two ships passing in the night. They're up to number 8 in the AP poll right now, 17-3 on the season. 8-1 in the Big Ten, tied for first with Iowa and Indiana in Big Ten play. Winners of 7 straight, including that 192 overtime upset of number 2 Iowa, in front of the largest crowd to ever see women's basketball at a game at the Shot. Let this sink in. The women are going to have a bigger crowd this season than the men. They might have a couple of them before it's all said and done. Because you got Indiana coming to town soon, and that's a team that's really good as well, 17-2. So they might have. They're at least going to have the largest crowd of the season. They probably have about a half a dozen that top the men's lowest crowd, is where I'm going, where I think I'm at with this.
Yeah. No, sign me up for it. Not even guys versus girls. Just, it's great to see the women's program thriving, right? We've talked at length. We're obviously McGuff fans, and there's a lot of talent on this team. It's fun to watch. Cody is obviously something special. JC's a great player. Like, they're fun to watch. They're not quite as, I don't think they turn teams over quite as much and play quite as a frenetic pace, but they're still an up-tempo team that's fun to watch. And, man, it'd be great if they could make a deep run. McGuff deserves it.
He does, man. Tonight they host Wisconsin. Comes in 10-9. Should be a W for the women. And then Sunday, the big one, number 10 Indiana. Again, the Hoosiers are 17-2. The Buckeyes are 17-3. So carve out some time on. Guys got no NFL this weekend, so you do have some time to watch the Buckeyes, the women's team play on Sunday. That was a fun one, man. I think we're done with everything we wanted to talk about. You want to go back in on Holtmann a little bit more?
I don't. I honestly, man, I take no joy in it. We're adults. We're old adults.
I'm not saying you are doing it. I'm going.
No, I know. I'm just saying I don't want people to fail. I wish he was doing great, but how long can you just say, okay, yeah, maybe next year? You can't do it forever. Whether certainly aren't going to do it in Ohio State football, but Ohio State basketball, like I said, look at the history. They've been a factor in the Big Ten. They've made. A boatload of tournaments. They've made some runs. They've got some Sweet 16s. Like, there's no reason to just accept this. And if you felt like, I think they felt like with the roster construction that, hey, this might be a year you can take another step. And instead you're taking a step backward or lateral to where you were last year, which was below 500. And at some point it's got to give. It'd be one thing if this coach had a pedigree, right? But you're literally talking about, you talked about those 30 losses in January, 26-30 or whatever it is. 15 of those have been by double digits. And what is it? He's about to finish his 13th season as a head coach, whether it was Gardner-Webb or Butler or here. He's never won a regular season conference title. He's never won a postseason conference title. And he's got one Sweet 16. Those are facts. That's not me shit talking. Those are facts. So
13 years? Yeah.
So what, you're going to bet on an 8th year being dramatically different than what the previous, 13 years have told you? I'm sorry. Like, it's time to do something unless something magical happens starting Friday night.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. I mean, that's why I like those guys that kill it at the FCS or lower levels of football, because I think they're going to be good wherever they go. This is clearly a guy, I didn't know that was a fact, that he's in 13 years of coaching, he's never won a conference regular season or tournament title. That's hard to believe.
At Gardner-Webb, 3 years. 3 years at Gardner-Webb, 9th in the conference, 10th in the conference, 2nd in the conference. 3 years at Butler, 2nd, 4th, and 2nd. That's where he's got his one Sweet 16. And then Ohio State, 2nd, 8th, 5th, 5th, 4th, 13th, and right now they're 12th. I mean,
did he pick up for Stevens? Is that who he came after at Butler?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So even those, you can kind of question, some of the success
right. Well,
he's had
his
there,
best team at Ohio State, the year they went 8-1 in January. It was his first team with KBD.
Guys.
He got a lot out of KBD. Don't get me wrong. But Sean Tate, KBD, Caleb Wesson, those were the 3 best players on that team. Those were Thad holdovers. Those were not his, which, you would expect. Not a ton of freshmen are going to come in and play right away, even though it's more likely in hoops. But that's still his best team that he's had here. I mean, it's last 1.5 Big Ten seasons, 8-22. What are we talking about, right? It's
unreal.
180 right now, the rest of the way, or he's, Gene and Ross both are doing a disservice to university if they don't act.
Is there anything he can do to save his job right now?
Win out.
He's like win the natty, pretty much.
Out.
Is that it?
Well, no, I'm not
like
win out to the tournament. You got to win out. You've got to make the NCAA tournament, and you better at least win one game. I would think if he makes the NCAA tournament, I think he'd be safe because just administration doesn't have the same expectations of the program as a lot of the fan base does, or at least it doesn't seem like they do. But how realistic is that?
Yeah, I'm going to go on a limb and say they're not going to make the tournament. So maybe next week, if they fall below 600, we can start talking about like some potential candidates.
Gosh, yeah, like I said, hate's coming to that and be talking about that in February. But if that's where we're at, that speaks volumes of, there's no choice at this point but to act.
Sure does, man. Hate to end the show on this sour note, but it is what it is. Thanks for joining us. As always, take care of each other. Be good to each other.